The blood pooled around her feet, warm and sticky, soaking into her white nursing shoes. Maya Okonkwo stood frozen in the alley behind Gangnam Medical Center, her phone clutched in her trembling hand, watching the man in the expensive suit wipe his knife on the dead man's jacket with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this 100 times before. Then he looked up, and their eyes met. "Shit," he muttered in Korean. Maya ran. She didn't make it 3 steps before strong hands grabbed her from behind, slamming her against the brick wall hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. The killer's face filled her vision, cold, calculating, and somehow familiar in a way that made her stomach drop. "Wrong place, wrong time, sweetheart," he said in perfect English, pressing the bloody knife against her throat. Nothing personal. The gunshot came out of nowhere. The killer dropped, a hole blooming red in his shoulder. Maya's legs gave out, sending her sliding down the wall. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard footsteps, then a voice deep, authoritative, speaking rapid Korean into a radio. When she finally looked up, a man stood over the writhing killer, gun still drawn, his face hidden in shadow. Then he turned toward her, and Maya's breath caught. He was beautiful, dangerously so. Sharp jawline, intense eyes that seemed to see everything, black hair falling across his forehead, tall, maybe 6 feet, with broad shoulders under a leather jacket. He looked like he belonged in dramas, not standing in an alley over a bleeding assassin. "Detective Kang Shi-woo," he said, crouching down to her level. His eyes scanned her for injuries with professional detachment. "You're safe now." But the way he said it, like a threat wrapped in a promise, made Maya wonder if she'd just traded one danger for another. Welcome back, lovers! This is Soul Heart Stories, where hearts collide across cultures and love refuses to follow anyone's rules. Kindly smash that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications because, trust me, you will not want to miss what happens next. Now, let's dive into a love story that breaks every rule. Detective Kang Shi-woo was with Seoul Metropolitan Police's organized crime unit for 8 years. At 32, he was the youngest team leader in the department's history. Decorated, respected, feared by criminals and admired by rookies who wanted to be just like him. He was also completely alone in a way that stopped bothering him years ago. His job was his life. His team was his family. He didn't date because relationships required honesty, and there were things he'd done, things he'd had to do that no civilian could ever understand. Women found him attractive. He knew that. Used it sometimes when cases required it, but he never let anyone close enough to matter, close enough to hurt, until the night his captain called him into a private meeting and everything changed. "We have a situation," Captain Han said, sliding a file across the desk. "A witness, Nigerian nurse, saw Councilman Park's son kill a drug dealer in Gangnam last night." Shi Wu opened the file. The photo inside showed a woman with skin like polished mahogany, natural hair in braids, and eyes that held both intelligence and warmth. Beautiful. Young, maybe late 20s. Where is she now? Safe house in Itaewon, under Detective Park Ji-hoon's protection. Ji-hoon, his partner, his best friend since police academy, the man he trusted more than anyone in the world. "So, what do you need me for?" Captain Han leaned back, his expression unreadable. "The councilman is important to this department. Very important. His support has funded new equipment, salary increases, political protection when we need it." Shi Wu felt something cold settle in his gut. "Sir, the witness is traumatized. Foreign, doesn't understand how things work here." Han's voice was smooth, reasonable. "Sometimes traumatized people remember things wrong. Sometimes they decide the stress of testifying isn't worth it. Sometimes they just leave the country voluntarily." The implication was clear as glass. "You want me to intimidate her into silence. I want you to make sure she understands her options and the consequences of making the wrong choice." Han smiled. You're good at helping people see reason, Shi Wu. That's why I'm trusting you with this. Shi Wu had left that office feeling sick. He'd bent rules before, looked the other way on minor crimes, made deals with small-time criminals to catch bigger fish. But this was different. This was being ordered to protect a murderer by destroying an innocent witness. He'd driven to the safe house in Itaewon on autopilot, his mind racing. He could refuse, take this to internal affairs. But Captain Han had powerful friends, and Shi Wu saw what happened to cops who went against the system. Blacklisted, drummed out, sometimes worse. Besides, maybe the witness would be reasonable. Maybe she'd take money, a visa to another country, a fresh start somewhere safe. Maybe he wouldn't have to actually hurt her. Ji-hoon was waiting outside the apartment when Shi Wu arrived. Hyung. His partner had greeted him with the easy smile that got them through 8 years of dangerous cases. Captain said you're taking over witness detail? Yeah. How is she? Terrified. Hasn't stopped shaking since we brought her in. Keeps asking if we caught the killer. Ji-hoon had glanced back at the apartment. She doesn't know yet that we're not looking for him. He'd stopped, his expression troubled. This doesn't feel right, Hyung. I know. Are we really doing this? For Councilman Park's spoiled psychopath son? We follow orders, Ji-hoon. It's what we do. But even as Shi Wu said it, he'd known something fundamental was about to break. Maya Okonkwo was in Korea for 3 years. She'd come for a nursing position at an international hospital, drawn by the promise of good pay, new experiences, and distance from a life in Lagos that had become suffocating after her father's death. Seoul was challenging. The language barrier, the curious stares, the microaggressions disguised as curiosity. But she'd made it work, built a life, made friends, started to feel like maybe she belonged somewhere again. Then she'd witnessed a murder, and everything had shattered. The police was kind at first. Detective Park Ji-hoon had spoken gentle English, assured her she was safe, installed her in a decent apartment, and promised protection. But then he'd started asking strange questions about her visa status, whether she had family in Nigeria expecting her back, how attached she was to her job in Korea, like he was testing whether she'd be easy to make disappear. Maya wasn't stupid. She'd grown up in Lagos, where police corruption was an open secret. She recognized the signs. These cops weren't investigating the murder, they were investigating her, looking for leverage, weaknesses, ways to make her go away quietly. So when the door opened that night and a new detective walked in, tall, gorgeous, and radiating controlled danger, Maya had already been planning her escape. Miss Okonkwo. His English was perfect, his voice like whiskey smooth and burning. I'm Detective Kang Shi-woo. I'll be handling your case from now on. Where's Detective Park? Reassigned. Shi Wu moved into the apartment with the confidence of someone who owned every space he entered. I need to ask you some questions about what you saw. I already gave my statement. I need to hear it again. He'd sat down across from her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her traitorous body respond despite her fear. Start from the beginning. Maya told the story mechanically, finishing her shift, taking the shortcut through the alley. The argument in Korean she couldn't understand. The flash of the knife, the young man's face arrogant, cold, like killing was just another Tuesday night. She'd watched Shi Wu's face while she talked, trying to read him. He gave nothing away, just listened with those intense dark eyes fixed on her, occasionally taking notes. When she finished, silence filled the apartment. Do you know who you saw? Shi Wu finally asked. The police said they'd show me photos. Park Min-jun, son of Councilman Park Dae-jung, one of the most powerful politicians in Seoul. Shi Wu leaned forward, and Maya had forced herself not to lean back. Your testimony could destroy his family, his career, everything he's built. Good. He murdered someone. In Korea, things are complicated. Powerful families protect their own, and people who threaten powerful families. Shi Wu had paused. Meaningfully tend to have accidents. There it was. The threat she'd been expecting. So you're here to scare me into leaving. Maya had kept her voice steady even as her heart hammered. To tell me I should go back to Nigeria and forget what I saw. I'm here to protect you. Liar. The word had burst out before she could stop it. You're here to protect him. The murderer. Because he's rich and connected and I'm just a foreign nurse who doesn't matter. Something had flashed in Shi Wu's eyes, surprise, maybe, or respect. You're smarter than they thought you'd be. Who's they? Everyone who wants this problem to disappear. He'd stood up, towering over her. But you're right. I was sent here to convince you to leave Korea, to drop this, to make it easier for everyone involved. Maya stood too, refusing to be intimidated. And if I refuse? Shi Wu looked at her for a long moment. This brave, beautiful woman who should be terrified but was, meeting his eyes with pure defiance, who'd been through trauma and recognized corruption and still refused to back down. He'd made a decision that would change everything. Then I protect you anyway. The words came out rough, honest. Not because it's my job. Because it's right. Maya stared at him, trying to determine if this was another manipulation. Why should I believe you? Because I'm about to commit career suicide by telling you the truth. Shi Wu moved closer, voice dropping. The department doesn't want you to testify. Captain Han ordered me to intimidate you into leaving. My partner, Detective Park, he's been reporting your movements, your vulnerabilities, looking for ways to pressure you. Oh, God. Maya's hand had flown to her mouth. The corruption goes deep. I don't know how deep yet, but I know that if you stay in Korea and try to testify, they will kill you, and they'll make it look like an accident. He'd pulled out his phone, fingers flying. Over the screen. I'm putting my personal number in your phone. If anything happens, if anyone approaches you, if you feel unsafe, you call me immediately. You could be lying. Setting me up. I could be. His eyes held hers. But I'm not. And somewhere deep down, you know that. He'd been right. Maya felt it, the shift from threat to protection, from enemy to something she didn't have a name for yet. What happens now? She'd whispered. Now I figure out who I can trust in the department, who's involved in this cover-up and who isn't. And I keep you alive long enough to get real justice. Shi Wu had headed toward the door, then paused. Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me. Not even Ji-hoon. Detective Kang Shi-woo. He'd corrected softly. If I'm going to risk everything to protect you, you should at least use my name. The first attempt on Maya's life came 3 days later. She'd been in the apartment's small kitchen, making jollof rice a taste of home that usually calmed her nerves when she'd heard the lock click, not the sound of a key. Something else, something mechanical and wrong. Maya had grabbed the largest knife and pressed herself against the wall, heart threatening to burst from her chest. The door opened slowly. A man she'd never seen before had entered. Gun already drawn with a suppressor attached. She'd barely had time to scream before Shi Wu had appeared from nowhere, tackling the assassin with brutal efficiency. The fight was short and vicious, trained movements, no wasted motion. Within 30 seconds, the assassin was unconscious on the floor, and Shi Wu was checking Maya for injuries with hands that shook slightly. How did you? Maya had gasped. I've been watching the building. Knew something was wrong when the lobby camera went dark. His hands had cupped her face, tilting it to check for damage. Are you hurt? No, But then the adrenaline had crashed, and Maya started shaking violently. Shi Wu pulled her against his chest without hesitation, one hand cradling her head while the other stayed on his gun, still pointed at the unconscious assassin. Breathe. You're safe. I've got you. And despite everything, the danger, the corruption, the impossibility of the situation, Maya felt safe in the arms of a man she barely knew, a man who was risking everything to protect her. When she'd finally calmed enough to pull back, she'd realized Shi Wu was bleeding from a cut on his cheekbone. "You're hurt. It's nothing." But he'd let her lead him to the bathroom, let her clean the wound with practiced nursing hands, let her stand between his legs while he sat on the edge of the tub. The intimacy of the moment had hit them both. "Who was he?" Maya whispered, dabbing antiseptic on the cut. "Professional. Chinese, probably. Which means whoever hired him has international connections." Shi Wu's hands had settled on her waist, steadying her or steadying himself. "This is bigger than I thought. Bigger than just protecting a councilman's son. What do we do?" "We run." His eyes had met hers, dark and intense. "I can't protect you here. Too many people know this location. We disappear, and I investigate from the outside. Won't you lose your job?" "Already lost it the moment I chose you over them." His thumb had traced her hip bone through her thin shirt. "No going back now." They disappeared that night. Shi Wu took her to a tiny apartment in Muledong that not even Ji-hoon knew about his private space, kept off all official records. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Nowhere to hide from the tension building between them. "I'll take the couch," Shi Wu said. But his eyes said something else entirely. Maya should have agreed, should have kept distance between them. Instead, she'd found herself asking, "Why are you doing this?" "Really?" "Because I'm tired of no being what they made me." He'd set down his bag, turned to face her fully. "I've bent rules, hurt people, done things I'm not proud of because I told myself it was for the greater good. But watching them try to destroy you for telling the truth," his jaw had clenched. "I can't be that person anymore. Won't be. So I'm your redemption? You're my line in the sand." He'd moved closer, and Maya's breath had caught. "The place where I finally stand for something that matters. I'm not some symbol I know." Closer still, until she could feel his heat. "You're a brilliant, stubborn, brave woman who should hate me but keeps looking at me like maybe you don't. I should hate you." But Maya's hands had fisted in his shirt, holding him there. "You were sent to intimidate me, to make me disappear. And instead, I'm throwing away my career, my reputation, everything I've built for 8 years." His forehead had touched hers. "Tell me that's not insane. Tell me you feel this too. This is dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous." His lips had hovered over hers. "But I haven't felt this alive in years. Haven't wanted someone this badly since..." He'd stopped. "Ever. I've never wanted anyone the way I want you." Maya had closed the distance. The kiss was explosive, desperate. All the fear and adrenaline and impossible attraction of the past days, igniting into something that made them both gasp. His hands had tangled in her braids. Her nails had scraped his scalp. They'd stumbled toward the wall, mouths fused, years of control shattering. When they'd finally broken apart, both panting, Shi Wu had pressed his forehead to the wall beside her head. "We can't," he'd groaned. "You're under my protection. This is wrong. Everything about this situation is wrong." Maya pulled his face back to hers. "At least this feels right." They'd made love that night with the desperation of people who knew tomorrow wasn't promised. Tender and fierce, careful and wild. Every touch branded with the knowledge that this might be all they ever got. Afterward, tangled in sheets and each other, Shi Wu had traced the curve of Maya's shoulder. "I need to tell you something," he'd said quietly. "About Ji-hoon." Maya had tensed. "Your partner? I think he's involved. More than just following orders." Shi Wu's voice was rough with betrayal. "The assassin tonight he got through building security too easily. Someone gave him access codes. And Ji-hoon is the only other person who had them." "Your best friend is trying to kill me? I don't want to believe it." "But the evidence?" He'd pulled her closer, like he could shield her with his body. "I'm going to confront him tomorrow. Get the truth. What if Maya hadn't been able to finish? Then I deal with it." His kiss was gentle, at odds with the violence in his words. I won't let anyone hurt you. Not even him. But the next morning, Ji-hoon found them first. Maya was making coffee when the door had exploded inward. Ji-hoon stood there with 3 other detectives, all armed, all looking at Shi Wu with expressions of betrayal and rage. Hyung, Ji-hoon's voice was cold. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice, kidnapping a material witness, and conspiracy. Shi Wu had stepped in front of Maya immediately. Ji-hoon, listen to me. I trusted you. Ji-hoon's gun came up. I looked up to you, and you threw it all away for... His eyes had raked over Maya with contempt. For her? For doing what's right, something you used to understand before they bought you. Ji-hoon had flinched like he'd been slapped. Bought me? I'm protecting the department, protecting our careers. That witness, he'd pointed at Maya. She's nobody. A foreigner who doesn't understand how things work here. Why would you destroy everything for someone who doesn't even belong in Korea? The racism in his new words was ugly, undeniable. Because she matters more than your dirty money. Shi Wu's voice went deadly quiet. How much did they pay you, Ji-hoon? How much to betray everything we stood for? What happened next was chaos. Ji-hoon had lunged forward. Shi Wu had fought him off while yelling for Maya to run. She'd grabbed her phone and the emergency bag Shi Wu had prepared, then fled out the fire escape while gunshots echoed behind her. She'd made it 3 blocks before strong hands had grabbed her. But not cops worse. Councilman Park's men. Professional. Efficient. A car already waiting. Maya had fought like hell. Screaming. Biting. Clawing. It hadn't mattered. They'd been dragging her toward the vehicle when a motorcycle had screamed around the corner. Shi Wu had shot the first man before they'd even registered his presence. The second went down with a broken knee. The third got a gun up. But Shi Wu was faster, better trained, running on pure protective rage. Then he'd pulled Maya onto the bike behind him, and they disappeared into Seoul's morning traffic. Hours later, in a different safe house, this one arranged by the one person in the department Shi Wu still trusted, a female detective named Yoon Sarah, they'd finally stopped running long enough to breathe. This is insane, Maya said, pacing. We can't live like this, running forever. We're not going to. Shi Wu was on his laptop, pulling up files. Sarah got me access to the internal investigation records, and I found it. The money trail. Councilman Park has been paying off half the department for years. Judges, prosecutors, even some politicians. It's massive. Can we prove it? With your testimony and these files? He'd looked up, eyes fierce. Yes, but it means going public. Media, international pressure, making this too big for them to bury. They'll destroy us. Probably. He'd stood, crossed to her, taken her hands. But we'll be alive. And maybe we'll actually get justice. Real justice, not their corrupted version. Maya had searched his face. This man who'd given up everything for her, who'd chosen her over his career, his best friend, his entire life. I love you, she'd whispered, the truth she'd been holding back, afraid to name. Shi Wu's breath had caught. Maya, I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for days. But I love you. And I need you to know that before whatever comes next. He'd kissed her then, deep and desperate, and full of everything he couldn't say. When they'd broken apart, his eyes was wet. I love you too, he'd said roughly, which is why I need you to promise me something. If this goes wrong, if they come for us and I can't, his voice had broken. You run. You get out of Korea and you live. Promise me, Shi Wu. Promise me, Maya. She'd wanted to refuse. Instead, she'd held him tight and whispered the lie they both needed. I promise. The press conference was a spectacle. Maya's testimony, the financial records, recorded conversations between Ji-hoon and Councilman Park. Everything laid bare for the world to see. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Councilman Park was arrested. So had Captain Han and 17 other officers. Ji-hoon had tried to flee the country but was stopped at the airport. But there was casualties too. Shi Wu was forced to resign. No criminal charges, he'd been vindicated, but his career in Korean law enforcement was over. The brotherhood he'd belonged to turned their backs. Maya had lost her nursing license in Korea. The hospital had claimed irregularities in her visa paperwork, retaliation disguised as bureaucracy. They'd both lost everything they'd built. But 3 months later, sitting in a small cafe in Itaewon, with Shi Wu's hand covering hers on the table, Maya couldn't bring herself to regret it. "Detective Yoon," said Interpol, "wants to hire you," she said, sipping her coffee. "London office." I told her no. Shi Wu's thumb traced circles on her palm. "I'm done being a detective. Too much darkness. Too many compromises. So what will you do?" I was thinking. He'd smiled, and it transformed his face into something young and hopeful. Private security. Helping people who the system fails. People like you. People like us, Maya had corrected. "And I got a job offer too. Doctors Without Borders. They want nurses in South Sudan." Shi Wu went still. "When do you leave?" "I don't, unless you come with me." "Maya, I'm done running alone. I'm done being afraid of what we have." She'd gripped his hand tighter. "Come with me. Help people. Build something good out of all this darkness we survived. Together." He'd pulled her across the table and kissed her right there in front of everyone, not caring who saw, who judged, who whispered about the disgraced detective, and the foreign nurse who'd brought down an empire. When they'd broken apart, both smiling, both crying a little, he'd pressed his forehead to hers. Together, he'd promised, "Wherever you go, whatever you do together." And in that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of their old lives and the promise of their new one, Maya had realized something profound. Sometimes the person sent to silence you becomes the one who gives you a voice. Sometimes the enemy becomes the lover. And sometimes justice requires burning down everything you know to build something better from the ashes. They'd survived corruption, assassination attempts, and betrayal from every side. But they'd survived together, and that made all the difference. 6 months later, they were in South Sudan saving lives. A year after that, they'd started their own organization helping witnesses, protecting the vulnerable, fighting corruption across borders. And every night, no matter where they were in the world, Shi Wu pulled Maya close and whispered the same words. "Best mistake I ever made. Choosing you. Second best." Maya always replied. "Best mistake was me trusting you." "When did you know?" He'd ask, playing the game they never tired of. "The moment you threw away your career to save me." "When did you?" "The moment you refused to back down, even when everyone wanted you to disappear." His kiss was soft, reverent. "You made me remember what it means to fight for something that matters." Their love was born in blood and corruption, forged in danger and desperation. It shouldn't have worked. By all logic, it should have destroyed them both. Instead, it saved them. Because sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do is fall in love with someone who sees you, really sees you, and chooses you anyway, despite the cost. And sometimes, that's exactly the kind of dangerous you need to become the person you were always meant to be. Lovers, if this story had you holding your breath, hit that like button now. Subscribe if you haven't, because we have more forbidden romance coming that'll make your heart race and your soul ache. Comment below. Do you want more detective crime romances? Or should we explore other dangerous professions where love can bloom in darkness? Bodyguards, spies, criminal lawyers. Tell me what makes your heart pound. Thank you so much for being here, for supporting stories that don't shy away from the messy, complicated truth that love sometimes costs everything and is worth every sacrifice. Until next time, dearies, remember that the bravest thing you can do is love someone when the whole world says you shouldn't. That's where real strength lives.